Thanks for joining us for this informational webinar on the Economic Mobility and Opportunity Special Assistance Program. I wanted to first just start off by introducing our team here that is part of the EMO Special Assistance Program. So my name is Raksha Vasudevan. I'm the Senior Program Manager that is helping to work on this program. The rest of my team you should be able to see on your screen. First, we have Laura Gutierrez. She is the Director of Research and also is overseeing all of the economic mobility and opportunity initiatives that we have ongoing at ICMA. Next, we have Laura Haig. She's Director of Governance and Capacity Building. And last but not least, Sarah Berkowitz, the Assistant Program Manager who's working on the EMO program. And Sarah is also our webmaster today, so a special shout out to Sarah. Let's go over the agenda for our call. We will start by providing a little overview of ICMA's economic mobility and opportunity initiatives. Then we'll delve into the special assistance program, and hopefully we will have a good amount of time for you all to get your questions answered about the program. You're welcome to submit questions throughout our presentation. Please use the Q&A function to do so. Several of you submitted questions in advance when you registered for the Zoom webinar, and we've done our best to sort of accommodate those and answer those as we present. All right, so let's just get started. I'll turn over to Laura Gutierrez to give us a brief background on ICMA's EMO work today.
Okay, great. Thanks. And again, welcome everyone. It's great to see so many familiar names in the list of participants. Sorry, we can't see all of your faces here, but just really wanted to briefly situate what we're talking about today in the context of economic mobility and opportunity work at ICMA. Given the familiarity with names on this list, I'm hoping that for most of you, this isn't the first you've heard of any or all of these things. But just here, this QR code and the link that Sarah dropped in the slide, I wanted to make you aware that we recently launched a LinkedIn account that's linked here that is a great place to track some of the latest and greatest developments, not just from EMO programming at ICMA, but also from our peer organizations and partners around these activities. So we encourage you to follow that page there. But you can go to the next slide, Sarah. As far as ICMA is concerned, for the last 2+ years, I think it's been at least, we have been fortunate to receive support from the Gates Foundation to offer programming that equips our members and their teams with information and resources around boosting upward economic mobility and opportunity in your communities. So these have ranged from kind of the lighter touch sharing of our own and others' knowledge resources and learning opportunities to some more higher touch support through mini grants and short-term peer learning cohorts through which we've reached up to about 40 local governments thus far. A new and really imminent offering is hosting the first National Free Economic Mobility and Opportunity Conference, which is coming up in Baltimore in less than a month, and will feature speakers from those that we've engaged with in this work and from those partners I referenced. So within a click or two from icma.org/EMO, there's different ways where you can, if needed, dive into more on what we've done so far. So whether that's reading written case studies or essays that we featured in PM Magazine, watching videos in our YouTube playlist, or reading more about or planning to attend the conference. There's lots of different paths for you to continue exploring. But before I hand it over to Raksha to really dive into the details of this new program, I just wanted to sort of mark how significant it is relative to what we've done thus far. I'm really proud that we have been able to seed some exciting things with these shorter term tactical offerings. But there is recognition at ICMA and with our funder and others that it really does take significant time and resources to really begin to institutionalize this as like a cross-cutting lens for aligning your internal team and working across silos, as well as working with external partners and stakeholders around what are obviously very multifaceted, intersectional issues and challenges. So as has been seen in the context of sustainability and innovation and other spaces, really seeding that with a dedicated leader with enough time and support, opens up real potential for improving systems and ultimately outcomes for local communities and local people. So it's also a leadership development opportunity for this field as well, at a moment when, for better or worse, there are a lot of talented people looking for places to channel their passion and experience for public service. So it's an exciting moment to be in, and I'll turn it over to Raksha to start walking us through what this is going to look like in more detail.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, just to reemphasize, we're really thrilled to be running this program. We think it's an important catalytic opportunity for local governments. So let's just jump in. Sarah, next slide, please. So what is this program, right? So let's look at a 10,000-foot level, if you will, before we jump into the details. Essentially, 15 local governments will be receiving grant funding to hire and support full-time senior level leaders for 2+ years, who will be dedicated to expanding your local government's efforts on economic mobility and opportunity for your residents. So how it works is that we will select 15 local governments to be what we're calling host communities. And then with the support of ICMA, the host committees will actually manage a hiring process to hire a senior level employee who we're calling a special assistant. And so this EMO special assistant then begins their 2+ year tenure with the local government, really looking to advance the community's EMO priorities by collaborating with external partners, identifying strategic priorities, and developing and beginning to execute a tailored implementation plan. Again, throughout this process, ICMA will support the special assistants with individual and group coaching, training, and customized technical assistance. So this is a very brief snapshot of kind of the process, but now I'll turn it over to Laura Haig to talk a bit more about how this grant will work. Oh,
Laura, you're muted.
You're muted.
How many years should we know this, right? Sorry, guys. What's also really wonderful about this grant is that it's a wraparound grant. It's really comprehensive. So not only supporting salary, relocation if needed, attending annual convenings and networking, collaboration efforts, and professional development. It really covers it comprehensively. And as I said, a wraparound, really supporting economic mobility and opportunity programs in your community. A lot of folks, of course, have asked us, like, is there an exact number for this grant? And for each chosen local government, it's going to look a little bit different because salaries are different, geographic locations are different, needs are different. But what we can tell you is that the cap for the salary support as part of the grant is up to $250,000. That's the cap on assistance supporting the salary. As Raksha mentioned, there is a lot of other assistance that this grant will provide: coaching, technical assistance, consulting. And again, that's going to look differently for each of y'all's communities, depending on your needs. And whether someone needs to hire a consultant, or maybe you need to hire an intern to support your process, we will work with you to support you as much as possible. And in that area, the grant will be, for this other direct cost, about a mid 5 figures to be able to support the special assistant local government in this economic mobility effort. Sarah, next slide. Other questions have been relating to the ideal host community. And what we hope for, and in our minds, what's an ideal host community is a community that has a holistic understanding of the community conditions that influence economic mobility, and not only an understanding and a motivation to act on that understanding of the common conditions surrounding economic mobility. We also are looking for local governments that have a very supportive and collaborative organizational culture. It's really important that this special assistant is welcomed and is a part of the team there, working with the city staff, of course, and elected officials, but that they can be welcome and integrated very quickly. And we put down there a medium-sized local government. And for us, what we mean by that is that it's a local government that's large enough to be able to manage the grant, to get started very quickly, to be able to support this position. And it's not too large, it's small enough that they really need the help, that this is a catalytic opportunity to support economic mobility. And finally, we're looking for local governments who have this vision of longer term support and sustainability for economic mobility efforts. Thanks, Sarah. The technical requirements, as you may have seen in some of the documents, if you've been on the website, the local government entities that are applying, they must include one ICMA member in serving in a senior role. And host communities must be able to offer and provide a typical full-time employee benefits package to the special assistant. The special assistant should report directly to the chief administrative officer or whatever your executive leadership position is, and that the community and the special assistant is supportive and ready to go with a co-design process that's launched within 6 months of the local government being selected. And finally, participation in all the virtual and in-person meetings for the special assistants. And there are some other opportunities for other representatives from that host community as well, but participation is mandatory. Thanks, Sarah. Contract process, which I know for many of us, it's probably the most fun. We've all applied for grants and know we have to fill out forms and that there's a process. ICMA is no different. One of the things we are expecting is that this process will require a quick turnaround, quick responses to ensure proper participation so we can get up and running very quickly. ICMA will require some forms that the host community will fill out, typical vendor applications, W-9, others. And so we'll need some cooperation and quick turnaround about that. Which also leads to a pre-agreement due diligence process that we'll do, and then the signing of the subaward grant agreement. Grant funds we are anticipating will be dispersed in multiple payments. The first payment, we're expecting between 1 to 2 months of the host community being selected. And this will ensure to cover the cost for about 6 months for the salary, and other travel, other initial activities for the special assistant. And then anticipating that the subsequent disbursements will happen on an annual basis. At this point, I'll turn it over to Raksha.
Thank you. So I want to take a look at what the application to be a host community actually covers and spend some time with that. I encourage all of you to take a look at the PDF that's linked here at the bottom of the slide. This covers all the technical details that Laura talked about so far, but importantly also includes the exact application questions that we're asking. So I'd recommend that you actually get your materials together in advance, work on it, and then actually submit it, because you won't have a chance within the application to actually save your work and come back to it. All right, so the first thing we are evaluating communities on is your understanding of economic mobility and opportunity challenges in your community. So here we're really encouraging you to be as specific as possible about both the barriers faced by the community and the populations in your community who are most impacted by these issues. Next, we have a few questions to understand your existing commitment to economic mobility. So this can include examples of existing plans or programs, relevant priorities of your government body, governing body, et cetera, that support these efforts. And we realize there's a mix of communities here today and who are interested in this program. Some of you all, as Laura Gutierrez said, have been working under the EMO framework already. And for others, this approach might be newer. So, we really encourage you to look at the other resources and tools that we have on the website to really get familiar with what kinds of topics fall under economic mobility and, demonstrate to us that you have an understanding of how your existing programs and priorities might holistically advance the EMO initiative. Next, we want to understand what are your organization's capacity challenges that have stalled or hindered your community from advancing EMO strategies. This really helps us understand how a special assistant may be supportive of your efforts. Again, we encourage you to be as specific as possible. Next, we briefly alluded to this before, but the special assistant is expected to work across the departments, but also with external community members, beginning quite early on in their tenure with your local government. So given that, we want to understand what types of internal and external collaboration, coalitions, networks already exist that can really help the special assistant be successful with this and get started quickly. After that, we have a set of questions that get a little bit more into the specifics. First, how the position will engage directly with executive leadership, which is, as Laura Haig said, a requirement of the grant. With this grant, local governments are able to develop a completely new position or rework an existing position with the understanding that this special assistant will be a full-time senior level position focused on EMO work. So we want to hear from you more about what you're planning on doing there. Are you planning to create a new position, or are you planning to rework an existing position that meets all these technical requirements of, being full-time, being committed to EMO, and working directly with executive leadership? And finally, ICMA is going to try to ensure some sort of geographic, economic, and demographic diversity in our host communities. So again, all these details, and more importantly, all the application questions are available in this PDF. So, we really encourage you to spend some time with it. Next slide, Sarah. So how do you apply, right? We've listed here the most important links for you to know, and the icma.org /EMO-SA is our landing page. It has everything, all the information, all the other links that you want. So definitely bookmark that one. But we've also included here the links, the direct links to the PDF request for applications, the application itself. And, there might be some questions that you have that come up, after this webinar as you're thinking about your own community. And so we encourage you to email us with any questions that you feel aren't answered in the request for applications. Lastly, if you're on this call because you're interested in serving as a special assistant, or if you know someone from your community or networks who may be, please have them fill out the interest form that's at the bottom of this slide. It's just a brief interest form that we will send updates to, and as the hiring process ramps up, we will share these folks with the host communities as relevant. Next slide. So to quickly review the timeline, the application does close on May 30th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So based on the submissions, we may conduct some follow-up interviews with potential host communities to learn a little bit more. But we do expect that the local governments will be selected around mid-June. Now, once your local government is selected, things start moving really fast. So we want you to have that in your mind now while you're applying. The summer 2025 is when you'll be expected to submit required documents, sign the subgrant agreement with us, and just fill out all the required documents as well as attend any virtual orientation activities. As we stated before, the local government actually takes the lead on the hiring process for the special assistant. So with ICMA support, you'll be responsible for drafting the job description, publicizing the position, and starting the hiring process. We expect that the special assistants will be hired by the host communities in fall 2025. And again, this was alluded to in previous slides, but pretty quickly after the special assistant is hired, they will be expected to engage in a co-design process to identify what are the strategic priorities for your community in the EMO world. And so since it is one of their initial tasks, we expect that the local government is actively thinking and planning for this in the time leading up as well. And again, with our support. So finally, the date and location are yet to be determined, but we also plan on having an in-person convening at the end of this year. Again, more information on that as we figure out the details. Okay, so next slide, Sarah. This is just, we're going to leave this as a landing slide, so you all can, go ahead and grab those links. But we are now going to open it up for questions, and I know we have received a lot already. So I'm going to just start answering some of the questions, and I'm just going to, pass a couple on to our folks here. So the first question, I'll just go ahead and answer, and I think I said this already, but the first question we got is, would this apply to an existing staff person who could be transitioned into EMO special assistant who's already doing some of this work, or does it need to be an entirely new position, program, et cetera? Again, the details are in the PDF, but it is all right to rework an existing position. I think what's important there is that this position is recognized as a full-time position working on economic mobility and opportunity. It is a senior level position, and it is directly reporting to executive leadership. So we would want to know, if you were reworking an existing position, what that would look like and what you would need to do to sort of take it there. Does the city or county need to be an ICMA member? Laura Haig, do you want to grab that one?
Yes, if it's your county administrator, your city manager, a person in a senior position must be a member. So someone who's working at that city or county must be an ICMA member.
Great, thanks. And actually, Laura, why don't you just answer the next one too, which is what they want, and we've gotten it in the chat and the Q&A, a little bit more information on the medium-sized community population size. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Sure. And we're not discouraging anyone from applying. I think what's really important for us is that it is a community that can move quickly, has some support, collaborative environment that can get up to speed quickly and start that co-design process, as well as not being too large that you really need, that this program would benefit you, the resources would benefit. So small enough that you still need the help, but large enough that you're able to manage the grant, support the special assistant, and launch fairly quickly with the program.
Thanks, Laura. Laura G, did you maybe want to take this question? Hiring at a more senior experience level in this field has been part of the challenge. Will ICMA use its network and channels to help create a deep pool of candidates for selected cities?
Yes, I mean, I think the short answer is yes, and not just ICMA. I think we're going to lean on our partners in this work to help. So we already sort of have, but to socialize this opportunity. And maybe to tie little threads of some of these other specific questions too. So there's a kind of a meeting in the middle that we envision where we have some expectations that we've already talked about for what these roles will look like in terms of reporting, and some key activities that we see common across all of the host sites. But then based on kind of the work that you'll do in your applications, there will be some customization as to what that maybe focus will look like in your local places. So once that all sort of comes together with the selected sites and the specific job descriptions are finalized, then I think we can even do a little bit more targeted outreach to try and help match interested candidates and talent with specific opportunities.
And Laura G, maybe you can just take this next one too. There's a couple of questions on, if we just received the ICMA EMO grant, are we still eligible to apply for this? And then again, just reiterating, are larger cities like Dallas, Texas still eligible to apply?
So again, I would go back to what Laura H said, which is we are, given that this is a new program especially, we don't, our general rule is not to discourage people from or places from applying, outside of a few technical requirements. I think really it's going to come down to the sort of quality of your answers to the questions that Raksha talked through, and making your case for having enough capacity to take this program and run with it, hit the ground running, but also enough need where this is a sort of a critical infusion of resources that I know resources are harder to come by everywhere, but that's a really good fit for the size and capacity of your place. So not a direct answer, but I think basically, saying again, we'd love to see, if you're interested, I think, make your case, and we're excited to read it.
Great, thank you. We have a question on, are there specific elements required to be in the job description? Laura H., did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so we will be working with the host community and putting together a job description. I think in some of the qualifications that we have, and maybe, Laura Gadaris, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, of having some experience being mid to senior level experience in economic mobility and opportunity in various areas, perhaps facilitation, co-design skills, but having worked in that field, I think we were talking about at least 7 to 10 years experience. I don't know if there's something else that you would like to add, but we kind of also wanted to leave it open because we know that local governments may have, they may already have an idea. They may need to tailor something a little bit more specifically to their needs and their community.
Thanks, Laura. And, we're getting a question about the co-design process and what it looks like. I think that, the easiest, sort of briefest way to say it is we hope for a participatory process, quick participatory process early on, within 6 months is our ideal, of the special assistant joining to really gather the priorities of, both within the local government, what your priorities are, as well as your community partners, to really try to shape, what the tenure of the special assistant will look like. That doesn't mean that participation stops there. That doesn't mean that they stop engaging, but it's a way to sort of really shape, what their strategy will be for the next year and a half. And again, that's part of what we are actively supporting with this grant. So we're not going to, leave them out to fend for themselves with that. The related question we got here is, should community partner support letters be provided? They're not necessary, partner support letters. However, the stronger you can demonstrate that you have these networks and that you have these links and a history of relationship with partners working on these topics, the stronger your application, right? It's, 30 months, 2+ years feels like a long time, but it also goes like that. So part of it for us is the special assistant is able to come into your local government and really take advantage of those relationships that you've already built over so many years, right? So the letters themselves are not required, but it would be great for you to, share with us what those relationships and histories working with your communities are. All right. So there's a few questions on, the ICMA membership requirement. One is, I'm trying to just gather all of them real quick. So one is, how do you know if your city, county is an ICMA member? Then there's this one, they're going through a senior leadership transitions, at least one full ICMA membership. So, how does that work? And I'm looking in the chat here to my team so that we can answer this. But does someone want to, Laura,
Sure.
do one of you want to jump in with the membership requirement and what that is?
Yeah, one way to think about it is, ICMA is offering this program, so that's part of the reason why we're looking for that explicit connection to the ICMA member. And again, as was said, I think before, the membership is not with the local government itself, it's with the individual in that chief administrative official or similarly, responsible role. So if you're not with your local government and you don't know if your local government or your municipal or county leader is a member of ICMA, you could follow up with us, we can verify that for you, you could follow up with them. But it is there's not a whole lot of flexibility there, but we are happy to, understand there are unique circumstances, and it may be just easier to contact us directly, and we can sort of look at what your specific context is to verify. I mean, if someone is not a member now, but is at the time of application, that can also work. So don't get too hung up. I mean, that's a technical requirement, but, should be something that is correctable. The bigger thing is having a larger plan for how this would work in your community. So hopefully that's touching some of these gray areas that people have raised.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, and I think, just to reiterate, if there is a very specific question for your community that you feel like, hasn't been answered by the general framework we've provided here, we're happy to, send us an email. We're happy to kind of respond to you directly and let you know kind of like what our thinking is around your community and your question. There is a question, Laura H, a couple of questions on your slide that you presented regarding kind of like what does this cover, right? So if you don't mind just talking, just reiterating again about the 250K and that portion of it and what the
Yes.
And then a specific question says the application calls for the host community to fund the benefits. Does that include the matching FICA?
Yes. So yes, for this, as we call it, wraparound grant, we do have an upper limit. So just supporting the salary of this position, the upper limit is $250,000. So that is just for the salary.
And sorry, Laura, that's across the entire 2+ years.
Yes,
that's
yes.
Important point.
Yes, very important point. It's across, yes, the 30 up to 30 months, 2.5 years. It is a limit of $250,000. Now, for the other things we discussed, such as travel, professional development, consulting, that is a separate pot of money. And we don't have an exact amount because there's different needs for different communities. But we are estimating that it would be up to the mid 5 figures that would support professional development, coaching, and those other activities, travels, things like that. Now, separately, as part of the technical is the requirements, we are the local government, the host community is required to offer and pay for the benefits for this special assistant, including FICA, health, everything else. But just as you would offer to any other employee when you hire them, that's what needs to be paid for this special assistant.
We just got a question, could a management fellow be transitioned into a special assistant? Again, I think each case is different, right? So we don't want to speak specifically to any case because we don't know. But the idea is if there is a position that you have that you think could be reworked into a position dedicated fully to, the EMO work, reporting to executive leadership, we would welcome your application. And in the application, you would want to tell us how the position you have would be transitioned into this position that we're envisioning for the special assistant. So again, existing positions, you're fine to rework them, but that means, really demonstrating to us how it fits the needs of this program.
And just to clarify, because maybe I wasn't in talking about that up to, because I saw another question about salary and how much. It is a senior level position, the special assistants, and the salary cap for the 2.5 years for the grant is up to $250,000. When I was speaking about the mid 5-figure amount, that is separately a grant to support professional development and travel and coaching and other things separately from the salary. So want to make sure that that's clear so people understand, because this is a more senior position in the community.
We're getting a couple of questions. Will there be any consideration or priority for communities to prioritize individuals with knowledge of and experience in the host community and its needs? So again, I think this is a good time to emphasize that we are selecting the local governments And the local governments are the ones who are really leading the hiring process with our support. So our support will be on the back end in terms of thinking through the job description, thinking through their hiring. But it's really the local governments that are, leading the process and selecting the special assistant. So if you're a local government that knows of somebody or a set of individuals who you think would be a great fit and want to send them the special assistant interest form, encourage them to apply, we obviously welcome that. We're looking for, special assistants can be from within and outside of the community as we're envisioning it. So, and then, hi, Cheryl, I just saw your name. 2 years of funding for the candidate starting when they're hired. Yes, so once they're hired, it's the around 30 months of the salary for the candidate, correct? Will selected host communities get preferential treatment with supplemental grant for professional development? Consulting and travel. Laura H., do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yes, I mean, the selected host communities, it's not preferential treatment. It's just part of the package, right? All the special assistants, the host communities, they in the selected communities will be eligible for coaching, professional development. All the special assistants will get a set, a similar amount for professional development. I think there's some of the nuances is sometimes maybe somebody might not need a consultant, but maybe they'd like to hire an intern, right? So we're going to try to be flexible with that. So there might be some nuances in differentiation of the grant that supports the professional development, the coaching, and technical assistance.
Okay, I see a couple more special assistant questions, so I'll just answer them quickly. Do you prefer a new position over a reworked position when scoring applications? We don't have a preference for either. What is important to us is that the role you envision is really supporting this this program, and there is the understanding that this person will report to executive leadership, and in your description, you're really demonstrating how that works and how successful they'll be in doing that. And the next question for the special assistant. So for the special assistant, just to be clear, that person will come from your form, not an open hiring process. No, apologies if I misspoke. The form is just to collect interested individuals, names, and where it's a short form. It's their name, their resume, and what states they're interested in working in. And it's our way of collecting folks who may be interested in the position, but it is an open hiring process that the local governments will run themselves. Team, if I miss, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, there was a question about, will there be another opportunity to apply for this in the next year or two? I don't know. This is right now the only grant that we have related to economic mobility and special assistance. Maybe Laura Gadaris can speak to it.
We well, at ICMA, no, this is the program for now through 2028, I think. There might be something similar elsewhere, but this is our pilot with obviously, maybe not obviously, but the idea is that this does launch, hopefully, prove demand for this and that this can work. But this is not unlike some of the other things that we've offered on the shorter term, more annual basis. This is it for the next and through the end of this cycle that we just presented.
So Laura H., there's a couple questions that I think are in response to your slides. So if you could cover them, it's in the chat. Okay. Is it the expectation that the local government will hire this person full-time after the completion of the 2.5 years of ICMA funding? I think that's a great question. And another question about, does the grant cover technology like a laptop?
Right. So, as part of our ideal host community, we're hoping that a community has a vision for long-term support of economic mobility, of sustainability of this effort. It is not a requirement, but it is of an ideal community if they see this as a benefit long-term. And the grant is not designated for technology. It is designated for professional development, salary, and other areas. So that would be something that the local government would cover.
Great, thanks. And Laura, I'll stick with you. It says interested in more specificity about what positions would satisfy the reporting requirement: city manager, deputy city manager, assistant city manager, etc.
So we expect that the person will report to the chief administrative officer. That might be the city manager or the county manager. It's not to an assistant to or an assistant city manager or assistant county administrator. We expect that the special assistant will report directly to the most senior executive position at your local government.
Great, thank you. There's a couple of folks who wanted clarification on what we mean by senior level special assistants, and I think we've sort of covered that from the local government perspective. If you are an individual who is interested, I think the recommendation I have is to go ahead and fill out the special interest form. It's hard for us to gauge exactly what each community would need, but we're thinking, as Laura H. said earlier, several years of experience in this topic. So I would say fill out the interest form, and we'll keep you updated on, as these host communities send out their job descriptions, and you can kind of decide what feels right for you.
Raksha, sorry, I know
Sure.
we're all looking in 3 different places for questions and answers, so we might have missed what each other said, but just on that last point, I'm sorry, I was reading and trying to listen to you, Laura. I do think, if it wasn't clear, I just got a ping from someone suggesting it was a little ambiguous, but we've tried to lay out CAO, deputy CAO, assistant. I mean, it's kind of it's very possible that there are scenarios where any one of those positions works as the reporting authority. I think with the senior level relationship, there's kind of a couple of key things. One is that you're close enough to the top administration of the local government to be able to directly make recommendations, or as directly as possible make recommendations in that role. And also that by that relationship, this person as a special assistant has the authority then to kind of direct across departments and silos. We don't intend to, I mean, there are some bright lines here, but if you feel like your particular situation, is a little bit different than what we described, that's very possibly okay. And just like, you can follow up with us to verify that as you're putting your application together.
One question on what would roughly be the start period for the position. We anticipate fall of this year, and moving quickly after that with the co-design process and things like that. To my team, did we miss any questions?
There is a question about is affordable housing and workforce development are components of economic mobility and opportunity? And yes, very much so. There's a follow-up question about health benefits package. Yes, the health benefits package is paid for by the local government. So whatever you offer to a full-time employee, that is required that you offer and pay for that for this special assistant.
Thanks, Laura. I'm now going through the chats to make sure that we have covered, I think we've covered most everything here. We can just pause, we do still have 10 minutes, so we're happy to stay here, stay online, and just make sure. And if we did miss your question and you want to retype it, apologies, they all came flooding in. We will happily answer it. And again, I just want to state that, yes, so I was just going to answer that, Michelle. We will be sending out the slides as well as the presentation to everybody that was on this webinar, all the registrants. We will also post it on our site. So again, bookmark that site and, really encourage you to spend some time with the PDF request for applications where you will find this information as well as the application questions. We just got a question about where can we see past communities that are in the program, and thank you for your presentation. So Laura G. I can
Sorry,
do it.
I was
Okay, no worries.
typing a response, but is it this question that just popped up about past communities?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do want to say, so on the icma.org/EMO site that I mentioned at the beginning, as you scroll down, you will see, you will be able to get to videos and lists of communities that have been, some of you are on this call, in past peer learning cohorts that we have, mini grant programs that we've run under the banner of EMO. That is different from this program. I mean, that is a 6-month, very micro grant sort of situation. This is a, 2+ year endeavor. But I do obviously still think that there's some connective lessons and, but I just wanted to draw that distinction. So see some places what they've done with shorter timeframes, much less resources for some inspiration, but know that this is a bigger and more extensive commitment too. So hopefully that helps.
And we did get a couple questions on, really specifics around certain special districts that can apply, or your community is smaller than what we've written as, quote, the ideal community, conglomeration of communities. So, I would say for those types of eligibility questions, if you think you'd be competitive or not, just send us an email. It's actually easier for us to answer those kinds of questions directly to you, just because it is very specific to your community.
Raksha, anything else?
I don't think so, but I think it's worth just, we can stay here, and if folks have questions as they sort of ruminate for the next couple minutes, we're happy to answer them. But I'm looking through the chat, and I think that we've covered most of it.
And just reiterating that there is a grant to support the salary of the special assistant, and a separate grant to support professional development, travel, coaching, technical assistance. Health benefits are the responsibility of the host community. They must pay for that. That is part of whatever you offer to a full-time employee. So I wanted to emphasize that.
Folks are already, saying thanks and jumping off. So we'll stay on, but for folks who are jumping off, just thanks so much for your interest. And again, spend some time with the application. If you have questions, we're here to, help answer them. And yeah, thanks for joining today.